rear frames, suspension systems, front frames, even crash structures. We engineer those in-house, we 3D print those, and we assemble them, and we ship them to our customers. And this is a system that's important to understand is highly scalable. It's a system where the same 3D printer, the same assembly cell can make the rear frame for a North American OEM and the front frame for an Italian sports car. We're using the same hardware, which means that same factory can run a capacity type model, and we can have 10 plus OEMs that are serviced from one of our factories, which means our investment in that factory is also fungible and capacity based. Where do we see ourselves in some years? We see ourselves essentially as the AWS of complex manufacturing, this outside manufacturing partner for these big OEMs and aerospace and defense companies. And you'll see Divergent already has plans for a future facility in the near term, but 5-10 years from now, you'll see us around 10 to 15 factories globally, really running the same production system in each of those localities, and then supplying those parts to our adjacent OEM partners.
And about the specs of the car, this is a V8 hybrid. The chassis is 3D printed, and how much of the car is actually 3D printed? Because it's not only the chassis, right?
Yes, so the chassis you see in front of you, all of the silver, that's 3D printed aluminum. It's not your standard aluminum. It's designed by our materials team, patented by them to have the elongation, the strength, the durability you need for auto. It's nearly 100% of the chassis that's printed, but we go beyond the chassis and we look at the powertrain, both the EV side and the combustion side. We look at braking systems, we look at transmission systems. That's because we can create really unique geometries that you cannot cast, you cannot make out of stamped metal, and we can actually do heat exchange and pass fluids through those geometries. So something like a brake system, for example, or a transmission. Here, for example, we've got a 3D printed transmission case. That case is actually doing all our heat exchange as well. That's what we call functional integration, and that's how we tie the functional systems directly into the chassis. So something like this transmission case could also take your suspension load cases, and now you don't have multiple parts, you've got one part that has dual function. And that's where we really see re-architecting the basics of a vehicle, changing the architecture of the vehicle, changing the BOM of the vehicle.
Next month, you will start a Euro tour with the Czinger. Right now, I think the car is in Barcelona.
Yes.
Are track records on your mind also in Europe?
Of course, of course. Czinger really exists to continuously break the boundaries of design and performance. The reason